Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where you are, wherever you are in this world. I'm Andy, and I have with me Larry from gracehealing.org. Hey, Larry, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. Looking forward to our time. I know we're going to get into a subject that's pretty deep for some people and one that's beyond some people's awareness, but it'll be good.
Yeah, yeah, and just to kind of frame it a little bit, what we're going to talk about is, there is a war going on right now that you cannot see, that we cannot see, and it's almost nobody's really talking about it honestly, in an honest way. They'll talk about politics and they talk about aliens, they talk about economy, they talk about, but they do not address what's actually behind it, right? So I think, Larry, I have a sense we're going to go into that direction that we talk what's behind all those things that are happening that we are not aware of or that we don't understand.
Yep.
And if you listeners, if you have been feeling something heavy in the air and you can't explain it, stay with us. I think we may be able to offer some clarity and bring some light back into our lives and how we deal with these situations. So, Larry, can I ask you maybe that we start off just with a prayer and then we get into the conversation?
Yes. And for all of those that are listening and a part of the viewership, I pray in thanksgiving to know that you are met in the prayer that rises from within your own heart. That it is the recognition first that there is an author of all creation. This author formed all things blessed within creation, and this author of creation is present to protect you and guide you through this time as we enter into a subject matter that some people find governance within fear. We hold no fear within this time. There is nothing of creation that can come against the creator of all that is. We choose to align ourselves first within creator. And if you agree, say within your own heart, Amen.
Thank you, Larry. So let's start here, Larry. And I'm going to ask you wide open questions to leave it wide open for you. When you look at the world right now, what do you see humans are missing? What are we
Well,
missing?
I'd like to begin first with what I'm seeing that they are getting is is there is a sense of wonder and question and humility of people reaching this place going, something's off and I don't hold the answer. And people are kind of like reaching out. As you know, I was at the Sixth World Forum for Spirituality, Religion, and Mental Health. And to see in that group leaders within that group that were hungering for a shift in the dialogue. They wanted to move away from just diagnostic aspects and to look to, well, what is it with spiritualism involved in the healing process through mental health. So there's an excitement there. There's an enthusiastic awareness, and we've talked about this before with the word enthuse in Greek meaning God filled. So there's a movement within the institutional bodies. I've dealt with legal groups, I've dealt with different individual corporate entities, and they have a hunger to realize that, like you said, something's off. I can see this, but I keep getting diverted, or something happens here. I see individuals that I thought I could trust, and all of a sudden they're completely different people than I thought they were. Yes. So what they're missing in your question is there is a sense of wonder and humility, recognizing, man, we've messed this up, and man, there's got to be a new dialogue and there's got to be a new understanding. But what they're missing is first spiritual. There is a spiritual root to everything we witness upon this earth. And Yeshua said that all, not part, all corruption that you see manifest upon the earth begins first in the spirit realm, the order of principalities. So if you see sickness, it is spiritual in nature, then evidencing and presenting to the body humanity. If you see anger, disruption, hostility, aggression, all these different things, those are corrupt in nature. So there's an origin point, and that origin point is what I believe people are missing. They think they are just walking a human-centered process. They've lost sight of the fact that there is more than this human-centric view.
So, so these are bad spirits?
Well, in some languages, they describe them in different ways. What I've understood them to be is prior to the manifestation of matter within Creator, before Creator breathed into existence physical matter, because Creator was fully content, fully pleasant, in all aspects of being, and desiring to express into creation image of self. In my understanding, the first image of self was Yeshua, as he breathed the very manifestation of his physical form as Yeshua. Then he established what would be described as the illuminaries, the heavenly realm, or the angelic realm, people would call it that. But some call them illuminary, some call them angelic, whatever. Or there may even be the term heavenly hosts. And the heavenly hosts were more than you could number. And in some cases, mythologically, and if you wanted to look at it quantum-wise, they even started describing the image of the stars in the skies representative of living form, because a star has a life force within it. So in order for that life force to take shape as a star, an illuminary within the heavens, it had to have a life essence in order to present. So there are those that speak to the illuminaries in matter, but now you have to go before that. There's an illuminary that exists before that matter presented.
Matrix?
Well, it's like we've returned to this reference many times. The Temple of Light image. What I had a sense in that meditation as it came forth, and we saw healing through the children's home and all the different things that happened through the Temple of Light meditation that we did, and the description I gave for you and you posted, was moving through the divine was a recognition of all that is divine. And it felt viscous. Every time you moved your arm, you saw a pattern form within the viscous nature of the light. And it was living form. Now, it was living form as creator, God creator. And you were moving within it, individual in definition, but as one within the light. And if you looked to yourself, you saw that you held no self, only recognition of self within the liquid form of light that was forming eddies in your movement. Yeshua came forth and he formed living beings by moving his arms through the illuminated light essence, and they would spiral up and take form, like the image we hold in the center of the Grace Healing image, that one that spirals on the website. That would take form, and that's what swooped down and fed the children in the meditation. However, actually in real life, while they were sleeping in India, they were actually being fed and they woke up with full bellies. So that made me recognize that we're missing what's transpiring above this human-centric formation. And in that, what's happening is people are losing sight of the fact that you are not just this body and this mind. That in itself evidences that, well, if that's the case and I'm more than this, I have to be as one with something that is more than this. So the illuminaries would be like you described, either the angelic form or the Temple of Light or the different ways that we could describe it. But it was the prior sense to matter. From within the breath of divinity came the expression of matter. And then growing from that expression of matter came Yahweh Elohim, God creator identified in name, desiring to express love into one form that would hold spirit form and matter, and that was named as humanity. Because the illuminaries, the angelic realm, they held spirit form. They were illuminated. They were brilliant beyond compare, and they were amazingly powerful and gifted, yet they didn't have the matter form yet. So that creation of this new race within the high form, the high creator, triune in nature, Trinity in form, we will form a new race in our own image. Yahweh, Yeshua, Abun, now established a new race, which happens to be humanity. Because God desired to express love for the sake of this new creation in the image of divinity, spirit, flesh, and body, spirit, soul, and body. Spirit connected to the body of creation, all matter, through the soul image, the flesh image, Yeshua, or God creator, the spirit expressing life into all these regions. From that became a spirit realm formed, and we won't go into this too deeply right now, because some of the illuminaries, the angelic form, the way I understand it and the way Scripture describes it, is more than you could number. And we're seeing all these quantum computers, scientists talking mathematical numbers, and they could talk about numbers that are just like staggering within the mind. But the illuminaries were more than you could number. And there's a common sense and awareness within mystics and spiritual guides and teachers that about 1/3 of those fell into what I'm describing as that thing happening beyond the human-centric view. That experience, that 1/3 that got angered because there was another race created in the divine image, which they thought that this new creation was below the divine image. So they were looking at it from a hierarchical sense, not from a oneness sense. So we watch within humanity, humans fall into that trap as well. We start to look at it hierarchically. We establish race. We establish political leadership. We do all these. We're doing all these things in a separatist view, human-centric, not knowing that the very decisions we're making are governed by these lesser illuminaries embodying us because we leave ourselves open to it through ignorance or willfulness.
So forgive me for saying that, but it sounds like a fairy tale, like a science fiction movie. You know, when I listen to it,
Yeah.
like all these terms that you just use. So I want to just bring it back onto
Well,
the
I tried to
human.
borrow from many of the beliefs that are all speaking the same thing but doing different words.
Yeah, I know. And I'm just saying what just comes to mind, that it feels still foreign to me, you know, to what you just articulated. So I want to just bring it
Yep.
down to the mundane day-to-day life.
Can I bring it to
So
some real example?
yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Like you and I have shared this before, but I think for the sake of the viewership, we have to kind of give a sense of reality that we're not speaking of a fairy tale process. And, you know, it's like, as you know, and I've shared this many times into the viewership, that I haven't walked into a room to express healing thinking I'm somebody like Harry Potter. I'm going to wield a wand and I'm going to speak this spell and that's going to happen. This person's going to levitate, you know, leviosa, you know, whatever, you know. I'm not walking into a room with that unfolding in my thought process. I'm walking in total surrender to that which is nothing that is Larry and all that is God. And what I've encountered is experiences that I can't claim as my own. And I've watched individuals functioning in ways that are not physically possible through the laws of physics and not personally possible in the fact that they could have pulled it off themselves. And I've witnessed things come out of people that others in the room saw happen too. They jumped back in fear, and I was like, okay, God, show me more. I wasn't fearful of it. I had a knowing that God was accomplishing something. I wasn't fearful of what this other thing happening in the background was. So as I was blessed to pray over certain people, whether a person in prison or whatever, and watching 67 individual spirits loosed from that person who was in an overdose, after the 67 spiritual influences, once illuminaries, now disembodied forms, governing this person's body through death, fear, anxiety, abuse, aggression, hostility, confusion, I was beginning to learn that, oh my God, it's not just not human centric, there is something of a spiritual nature happening here that is beyond the human-centered view. And I had to open my eyes to that. Another woman saw multiple spirits rise up and leave her from the table. She could not walk when we put her on the table. When each of these individual spiritual entities rose up, she was able to sit up, spin, stand up, and want to go for a walk on the beach. Again, two other people in the room were witnessing these darkened forms. They couldn't see them in definition, but God allowed my eyes to open and see them in more definition. They only described them as a shadow form, presenting and leaving. I was seeing the brokenness. And in that, I was like, okay, God, show me more. It was like, I wasn't doing it. I was honored to participate in the process and witness that there is something more than myself unfolding here, and there is something more than her or him present within them.
So this reminds me of what the church does. Exorcism. Is that basically exorcism when you help release spirits?
Yes, that's the key. And the problem is what's happened is when people hear the word exorcism, they go right to Linda Blair or whatever. They Hollywoodize this process. And they don't understand that their willingness to bring drama to the process of exorcism actually makes it drama. It doesn't need to be that way. It can simply be a loving transformation and restoration and a process of renewal. It does not have to be somebody showing up with a suitcase with pine stakes, holy water, crosses, and beating battle-ready priests into submission over the spiritual realm. It can be done without drama through a surrendering into that which is God. Because if God's presence is known, not my priestly role, but God's presence is known, nothing of a demonic nature can hold its form in his presence. It'll only be that which is seen by God as a higher form. But our problem is, and we've talked about this as well, if you look at the quantum reality, all moments are possible and remain possible as a result. The thing that changes it is our observation of it. So if we choose to absorb or observe this encounter, which we could describe as an exorcism, and we're showing up battle ready, armored up, ready to take them on, that's exactly what we're going to unfold.
So why would the church do the practice like this? Why would there be a label like the devil or other labels that are why isn't it approached in a more in a way like you just described? It seems like it is stirring fear in people.
Well, let's look at the quantum statement again. If electrons, protons, and all aspects of reality are present in a state and able to become whatever our observation directs them towards. So let's say for the sake of a moment that we are, and I'm not going to get into the spiritual ties here because of the corporate governance over like the church. There is a demonic force that governs corporate entities, whether the corporate entity is a family, or the corporate entity is a corporation, or the corporate entity is a church. It is a corporate entity where multitudes of energetic creations, individuals, coalesce. And they coalesce in like states of mind. They coalesce in like influences, meaning like spiritual influence, not just thoughts, but like spiritual influences. And the way that might look is if you look into the church, you go to one church on a Sunday and it's all celebratory, bubbling, bumping, bouncing around. Life is everything. Life is great. Life is wonderful. Blah, blah, blah. Like, let's say our rock band. Let's go out to the front lobby and buy ourselves a cup of coffee and let's just wander around and turn this all comfortable while nobody's dealing with the real factors at hand. And it's all kind of like smoothed over to this presentation of marketing. And then you have these other extremes where they come into a setting And they don't understand, but as a church, they're looking at each other within the group and they're saying, look, we're the only ones that hold the absolute truth. Those other faiths, those other practices are wrong. Or you have another practice of faith that says that other religious body is wrong. We need to kill them. We need to end them. We need to remove them from the planet. That is what's called the spirit of high judgment. And so that governing spirit, not God, is governing that body to think of themselves as somehow separate and that they have to bring harm or a battle-ready mindset to others that they know of different beliefs.
So the governing body that you mentioned, that's the institution?
Yeah, it would be the
Okay.
governing body. So
That governing body, that institution attracts those spirits, right?
yes,
But
exactly.
so these spirits are a possibility, right?
They are a strong possibility.
But
Well,
they're
let me
not.
ask you this, and let's put this out to the viewer. Have you ever been in a situation where you're dealing with somebody and you seem like you're doing fine, you're engaged in conversation or whatever's happening, whatever's unfolding, and then all of a sudden they just completely flip. They even look different in their face. They become angered. They become hostile. They become aggressive, and you're like, "Whoa, who?" It's like somebody else showed up in the room. Am I right?
Mhm.
You see the countenance of their face change. You see the reactions within their body become more distressed. You see a hostility within them that wasn't present when they were trying to gain your trust or your influence or your conversation. And if you had taken anybody out of their personal life and put them in that situation, they would have been shocked to see this person look like this.
So how did that happen? How did that impulse happen? How did that change? How was that initiated? That's what I don't
So let's
understand.
look at it from the corporate side that this individual came to me, say as a counselor or whatever, and they were seeking counsel to this corporate entity that is Grace Healing, Larry Reynolds, and drawing onto them this place that was the opportunity to seek counsel, understanding, and all of a sudden I became a mirror. And they didn't like what they saw in the mirror because I asked a series of questions that made them uncomfortable, shifted them from a place of divine love and safety counsel to a place of fear. Oh my God, he's going to see what I've hidden. He's going to see how I treat my wife when nobody's around. He's going to see how I treat my employees when so they enter fear of being seen as less than they see themselves as. In that fear, it opens a gateway or a pathway towards the spirit realm. See that little subliminal message over there?
Mhm. Yeah.
A covenanted love.
The book.
Yeah, exactly. So, but what it's done is it's opened a pathway for the individual to either be governed through ignorance or willfulness. Willfulness would say I have every right to beat this person down, and I would beat them down with my words, forms of hostility, aggression, argumentative nature, whatever. Or I'm totally justified in isolating, separating, and getting away from this individual because I don't want to look at myself any further. And I don't want him to see who I am. So all of a sudden the person is, here we were in the beginning in a opportunity to present love, to seek counsel and fullness of agreement to move forward in understanding for both of us to grow and elevate together. At a certain point, one of the individuals didn't like the image that was presenting and either chooses aggression and hostility, hold on to the image through fear, or they choose fear and separation and isolation, and they separate themselves from the ground that was presented before them.
So it's interesting that you mentioned mirror. So anything that we witness, what we see, and then react to it is really just a mirror of what's going on with me.
Oh, yes. And I would challenge people to recognize that if somebody comes up to you and says something, and like the big word nowadays is trigger, if
Mhm.
it triggers you, it's not them. It means that it's in you. So again, if somebody comes up to you in aggression and that triggers you, that means that you are holding on to the spirit of aggression. Now you either regress from aggression or you respond in aggression, but the spirit of aggression present within you is there, and it's evidencing in the fact that you were triggered by it. So instead of getting aggressive towards the individual, that presents you the opportunity to say, I can feel the aggression rising, but it is not me, and it is not God within me. Theology, I release to you the spirit of aggression, and I embrace your holy presence in return. Another big example today is racism. It triggers people left and right. Yet I have so many black friends that turn around and they're like so sick of the argument because they're like, just let it go. I mean, we just had June 19th, or what do they call it, Juneteenth,
19th.
celebrating the day of the release of the slaves. Most of the black people that I know hate that. They don't like it. They think this is ridiculous. I am living a life that is not part of that. I am blessed in a life that I am so grateful that that occurred, but I don't have to isolate a day. My life, living my life, blessed and free, evidences the result of that day. So why wouldn't I live every single day in such a way that reflects freedom over servitude or slavedom? So again, if it triggers you that somebody said something else and they didn't even intend it racist, but you immediately turned it into racist, you're evidencing that you hold a spirit of racism formed back to that individual in aggression, hostility, who out of fear isolated and withdrew. That isolation and withdrawal will become racist or isolationist. They will start to separate themselves from other groups because the spirit of racism rises. They think it's a protector. Oh, you got to watch out for those guys. They're different from us. Oh, wait a minute. No, those guys, they're our enemy. Everything's got to be about separation so that fear presentation allows people to be triggered in such a way that they haven't even discovered that the reason why the politics work on them is because that individual hearing about those monsters, those evil people, those people named as enemy, can't look upon them in love the way that Yeshua taught them to. They can only see them as the corporate entity deems them to be. And then they react because the racism is already present within their heart. The isolationism, the separate concept of not being as one, instead of, like Yeshua said, to love thine enemy, to pray for the person who names themselves enemy. For those that speak words against you, speak words of life back upon them. Speak no words of curse against another. So that's what we could choose, but humanity continues to think that that person triggered me in racism. No, you hold the spirit of racism, and that person spoke racism. If it wasn't in you, you would have immediately seen, oh, that they're moving from a place of isolation, separation, or racism. I'm going to pray for them. But if racism is in you, you react racistly.
Okay, so here I am in this room, and I'm just trying to paint the picture to understand what you just said. So here is the spirit of aggression. Over there is the spirit of racism. Is it good? Is it bad? Where is it? Is it out there and then all of a sudden it's in me? Because you
Well,
said,
it is by intentional awareness. Remember that back to that quantum thought. All possibilities are available.
okay, but I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I can be aware of racism as how it plays out in the world,
Yep.
right?
But
But
does it determine your responses?
no, I just observe it. Let's say
Right.
I observe it and I don't respond.
That's a
So is
sign
that
that it is at a distance. It's not within you.
okay? So is it good or is it bad? Or is there such a thing as good and bad? That's what I'm struggling with.
Okay. Well,
There's good
again,
spirits, there's bad spirits, right? No?
so again, let's go back to that possibility of dual
Okay.
outcomes or
Thank you.
percent of
Thank you for your
outcome.
patience.
That's okay. No, this is awesome. So again, if we're sitting in a situation where we could embrace racism as a tool to wield against another, or we are using it as a way to say, okay, Well, it's not governing my reaction right now, but I see those in the world that are moving in what would be described as racism. There are those that are moving in a level of darkness that is governing racism. There are those that are functioning within light that are trying to find their way within it, but they're still willing to weigh and measure racism. Well, it's good to keep a distance. No, it's good to set that boundary. No, it's good to set that border in place. People are still doing things that would be isolationist. So to me, I could either look at the totality of what I see unfolding and say, racism is justified. I don't believe racism is justified. I believe justice, holy justice is justified. So if I'm looking at a situation, let's go right to the point. Let's say we're looking at a certain country, whether it be Europe, America, Africa, whatever, and we have open borders to anything and everything that wants to come in. Who's most likely to want to come into places of individual gain or exploit? Who's going to want to press their way in there?
It would be the people that want to take advantage of
Right?
resources and whatever.
Exactly. And then also from that standpoint, there's those that wish to exploit it, take advantage of it, or destroy it from within. There's also individuals that have incredible gifts, capabilities, and possibilities within their life that wish to participate in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are also others that have these gifts, capabilities, and opportunities within their lives that say, no, I'm going to stay right here and make my country right.
Mm-hmm.
They don't try to impose themselves in this other mechanism, whether it's Europe, America, Russia, Brazil, whatever. It's like where the person chooses to be within the capitalistic resolve, meaning to capitalize. I'm not talking about capitalism. I'm talking about capitalistic view. I'm
Right.
going to capitalize upon this. I'm going to take advantage of this, or I'm going to scrutinize, utilize, and destroy this. There are different things. And what happens is people in a racist mind, they hear the word border, and they immediately start to get racist. We don't want these in here. We don't want those in it. And they immediately come from a racist reactive form. Instead of looking at this and going, okay, we do need borders because it brings order through divine justice and the justice of man. So if we bring order into a setting, let's say that there is a successful model, a country in the world that has proven that there is a successful model available and a lot of people can prosper through that model. Well, we need to protect that model. It could be done through light. It could be done through bringing all things into transparency and in the light and go through a series of agreed upon laws and guidelines that could bring people into this mechanism that has proved success for so many people. And hopefully, even those people that hold the skills, abilities, and opportunity to help their own country would come into and across this border through the laws of divine justice and earthly justice and improve upon their skills, abilities, and understanding and wisdom through the experience that they gained in this working model, and then return back to their country and translate those conversations into functional benefits for those that are not functioning in a model that benefits. So if we would look at that and recognize that reactive would be immediate racism. Shut up and kill them all, blow them all up, kill them all again. They're all color enemy. They want to come over here and all they want to do is, well, wait a minute. No, there has to be a discerning to say, you described it out here. There's this anger, aggression, hostility, enemy, hostility, darkness, light, all these different things. In my humble view, if I'm looking at a situation and I feel a reactive energy rising within me, I have to first find what is governing that reactive sense within me instead of moving to a divine response. I have to search and exorcise what is governing my nature to want to react to it in offense, separation, aggression, hostility, or to deceive, confound, manipulate, or even change the facts or ignore the facts. I'm just going to ignore all this stuff and I'm going to just say what I say because I feel it, it's truth. So what we've done is we've moved ourselves to a reactionary state of being instead of a meditative responsiveness
Hmm.
that is governed by the divine. So then we end up perpetuating that which governs the corporate entity, emerging from darkness, and the darkness within us rises to be expressed instead of the light of God's presence through prayerful meditation and realize that, wow, when that person said that, it sounded racist, but there is racism within me. I need to release all forms of racism to recognize that we are all from the one source. Each one of these humans that walks this planet comes from the very source of all creation. God didn't make them the way they are. God created them in the form of blessing. They entered through the order of principalities and into the realm of humanity. And in that way, they were altered in such a way in their upbringing, in their surroundings, or their generational influences to behave in certain ways that I find right now questionable. What is it stirring in me? Until I clear the vessel, this vessel is of no use. I need to search my heart before the presence of God to say, what is it that I am holding, both in my life experience, my religious fairy tale that you described earlier, or my observations of humanity today? Are these all centered upon the divine and the oneness that is God within me? Not yet, therefore I'm useless. I am of no value in the process if I'm going to perpetuate lies and deceptions in the opportunity for truth and integrity.
Hmm. It's very interesting. You know, what comes to mind for me is there's so much going on out there in terms of predictions, what's going to come in the future that can stir fear. And I'm thinking like, AI, I'm thinking about when they talk about UFOs and things like this, and we don't know what is true and what is not true that we are being told. I'm thinking of that our livelihood could be actually threatened if, for example, with this social proofing, that
Yep.
or the currency manipulation and all that stuff. So that fear is not a reflection of what's going on in myself. I don't see it that way. So my only option would be just shut it down. Don't watch the news. Don't even listen to what's being said out there. Just focus on myself, on God,
Mm-hmm.
on my connection, and that's it. I don't
Yep.
care what's going on out there. But isn't that reckless too?
Well, let's look at that like from what you just described in the fear governance. Would you say our avenues of provision?
Yes.
Yeah, so our avenues of provision. I don't have avenues of provision. I have one creator that has made all provision available to me at any point within my journey. I merely need to seek creator within me to know the measure of where I'm supposed to land. What am I supposed to do? At this time, I'm dealing with buildings, I'm dealing with other things. I would like to see an increase in God's measure through grace healing, but the provision I have, everything that I have comes of the source, God creator. So if they try to alter, manipulate what form provision reaches me today, I'm fine. God's going to present me an opportunity within that model that my provision will be met just like the birds of flight. Down to
Yeah.
every bird of flight, it's all there.
And that may mean sleeping under a bridge. And I'm
Who
exaggerating.
knows? Yeah, and I'm going to be in absolute love with God because this is part of the human journey experience that is unfolding that I chose in the presence of God. That carnival ride, that one right there, that's the one I want to go on. And I had clarity before the presence of God to know every step, every footfall I was going to take as I entered the human vessel that was within my mom's womb. Prior to that, I had that knowing, but then I passed through the veil of spirituality into the veil of humanity. That was when I collected all the things that separated me from that original sense of clarity that was my high state of spiritual being. That's where I see all of this unfolding. So when we mention the word to exorcise or to have an exorcism, if I'm encountering something in the world that is making me uneasy, or recently I was dealing with a mom who lost her son, and in prayer over her for a number of months, she was finding peace in God's presence, but then she was drawn to a group of people, a group of moms that have lost their children. And in the spiritualist talk, they were talking about connecting with their children every day. They go and visit with their children every day. So I said, okay, help me understand. Tell me more. Now, I didn't take offense to the fact that she cast off everything we had shared in instruction. I just sat and listened and asked, well, tell me more. What did you experience? Well, I did, like they said, and I sat down in a meditation and I centered my heart upon my son. And next thing I knew, there was a presence there. And it was like, I would describe it as very cold and extremely oppressive. And I knew it was him. And I said, well, can I ask you a question? When you think of a divine, loving creator, a divine spirit of, let's call it, warmth, comfort, blessing, and peace, does any of that describe cold and oppressive? No. And so what you're showing me is you did not connect with your son of the higher state of the spirit realm. You connected with something of a spirit realm that is mimicking his presence, but something within the lesser spirit realm, the order of principalities, the realm of darkness. They cannot mimic what they don't know. They cannot remember what it is to know of a pure and loving, divine, godly presence, one that brings warmth and comfort. They can only present themselves from that state of darkness that presents in cold and oppression. So you, choosing as a mom, searching your son, basically you're supplanting God to search for your son. You have set yourself in a realm that is outside of the nature of God's holy design, which was you would find all provision back to the provision. How do they want to mess with my money? They can't. God's my provider. If I'm, as you know, I'm in the 10th year since my son was born into new life unexpectedly. I don't seek to be fed by the fact that my son was moved on into new life 10 years ago. I search the presence of God. I find the comfort. I find the peace. I find the warmth by searching the presence of God as my provider. So God is my creator. God is my provider. God is my sustainer. And God is my completer. So I wouldn't be searching either the highest heaven, lowest heaven, or the spirit realm between. I wouldn't be searching into darkness for something that I feel is missing within me, like the loss of my son. I would celebrate the fact that my son is increased into the higher state of being before the presence of God, and I would not hold any ties or tendrils upon him by keeping him bound to this earth in my desires. So that would be exorcising the spirit realm from within me to center first upon the oneness of God as my provider. The institutions want to mess with the money? Fine. God is my provider. They can't impose fear on me. They will not succeed in fear upon me. If they wish me to do something to alter my body, this is my body. You will not touch it. This is the very nature of the body that was given to me by God, and it's the holy temple for God's use. They will not harm it. They cannot come against it. Even if they took it to the extreme and took my physical life, they will never touch my spirit. My spirit is pure and perfect before the presence of God. Only thing they can impact is my flesh and my body, my spirit, my soul and my body. My spirit is the presence of God in every aspect, every breath, every moment. Therefore, if I align myself first unto God, I will be governed in such a way that the spirit life of my existence will flow through my flesh, meaning the soul, and evidence through my body. And in that, we aren't governed by what some banking crew tries to implicate upon us or whatever. All my provision comes from the one source.
Hmm.
And I won't go into this too far, but there's also a reality that everything I have is not my own. If I have resource and I find somebody in a point of need, I search the presence of God to know, God, what do you want your resources used for? Do you wish me to help this individual? And at this point in prayer, I might have this knowing that, no, I'm not to assist this person because God desires them to turn toward his face and he has the answer for them. And in another case, I might get, oh, no, I'm supposed to give provision for this individual at that place of destitution and assist them in a way that was unexpected, unsupportable in the world. In other words, nobody else was helping them, and say, God led me to do this for you. And it elevates them to say, okay, maybe I need to look toward God. So how do I use the resources? Where do the resources come from? I would rather seek the source to say, you gave these unto me. What is your desire for their use today?
Very interesting. Some people, Christian in particular, Christians, are governed by scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the Revelation 13, the famous one, right?
Yep.
Um, I don't want I just want to kind of wrap it up around that topic, but not from a controversial point of view of Revelation 13, but more about, the Revelation 13 often gets turned into fear and end time drama and all
Yep.
those things. But I want
Yep.
to bring it down to a more practical level, for Christians that may be wondering how to understand demonic influence and that spiritual pressure. And, how can you have faithful resistance without being sensational, or even naive about it? Because, you touch on so many points. And I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it, but how can we, in a practical way, not dramatize and really go within? Do you know
Now,
what I mean?
you chose a word, resistance.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, in that, like if I was to look at this from the highest to what we witness upon the earth, and then lower points, meaning images of darkness instead of images of light. Resistance defines in me as not of the light. It it shows like a recoiling or withdrawing or an inability to engage. However, if I looked at something not in resistance but through surrender, so I surrender to the higher state that is God within me, now I can affect change. I don't need to resist it, but I engage in it from the divine to move it in such a way that it transmutes it, transforms it, makes it to be of a more beneficial benefit for those upon humanity or those within the spirit realm. So if I was to resist, I would withdraw, isolate, create tension, whatever. If I surrender, but not to it, I surrender first unto the divine, the wisdom, guidance, discernment that will flow through me will shift this naturally or inherent situation of resistance into a place of movement toward blessing instead of resisting and holding it in its stasis of being. So, that being said, it is about that willingness to surrender and return to the divine complete. And that's what I learned, like when we were saying, take the drama of Hollywood out of the exorcism process. As I've shared with you before, and I've shared with a number of people recently, when I've been called to do exorcisms, like priests come and grab me and say, we're in the middle of an exorcism, it's out of our control. It was always out of your control. It's like, well, what are you going to do to prepare? I'm like, well, I'm just going to go in. I'm going to choose God and I'm going to go in. So they were battling, fighting, because they went in, they were taught as priests to be battle ready. Let's take this as a war going on. Politics and aliens, they're all going to fight us and destroy us. I think you were saying that earlier. I walk in, I see an individual hovering 8 inches off the floor, screeching, feminine voices, masculine voices coming out of this individual and floating, because, why not break the laws of physics? Because the spirit realm can alter things in such a way that certain things happen that you cannot explain. So now the priests are freaking out. All I felt was a surrender, not to resist what's unfolding, Because remember, these priests were so unsettled by the situation. While this exorcism was occurring for them, they left the building with him floating, drove together in the car and came got me, brought me back, trying to prepare me for the battle in the ways that they prepare themselves. I'm like, you're already over your head. You're beyond, this is me in my own mind. You're already over your head, beyond your understanding. You don't know what to do, yet you're trying to instruct me in what I need to do in order to enter a situation that you have fostered, supported, and perpetuated. That's me and my little mental calisthenics going on in my head. Wait a minute, they're trying to tell me to do the very things that have led them to the place where they cannot do what they thought they were going to do. I need to surrender. And I just quietly said, well, no, I'm fully covered in prayer. I'm trusting that God's presence is within me. And when I walked in, again, I saw them floating. I saw them, and they kind of like wandered off. I didn't know at that moment what was happening, but they ended up physically hiding behind a couch. How far does that show humanity's inability to understand? What is a couch going to do between you and the spirit realm? A bunch of fabric, a piece of wood, and a frame, it's not going to do anything to protect you. So what is the difference between you over there behind a couch or you standing in the midst surrendered to God? But they were in a resistant state of mind, in a battling mindset. We need to protect ourselves in reserve in case they get a hold of Larry. So they're hiding themselves as reserves. Battle mindset. Let's bring it to the exorcism process. Well, remember that Linda Blair thing where her head was spinning around and around? We don't want to see that happen. He's already floating off the ground. We don't want. So they're fear governance on every level. So from their instruction, from their developmental growth, from their process of implementation, they were developed in such a way that in the quantum reality, they were only able to reserve a potential result that was fear-based, driven, and war result. I walked in the happy idiot, saw this individual floating and thought, oh my God, God loves this individual. And I walked over and I kneeled down, folded back onto my heel with my butt against my heel and just gently took him by the chin, pulled him again like 8 inches off the floor right to my lap, and just Yahweh Lamokole Matali Melech Kishneo Tutarabachalam, Yahweh Lachim, that is my name, return and remember to know the fullness of my love. And in that moment, his body settled and came to the floor. All the green bile he was coughing up stopped coming up. The screeching women's voices and the screeching masculine voices that were coming out of him stopped. So instead of this becoming a protracted 12-hour exorcism, or in some healing segments, they did, a couple hours worth of focused and intense prayer that we bind and cast and bind and they get into these things where they're doing things of a warring mindset, aggression, hostility, control, manipulation. They want to deceive the spirit realm and they want to trick it into a prison that they themselves are forming in what they call the place of the dry bones. So many Christians speak that language. We cast them off into the place of the dry bones. We cast them into the realm of darkness. We cast them into the fires of hell. So we are positing from our fear instruction a further message of destruction into the spirit realm. No wonder the spirit realm is scared to death. What if we truly completely surrendered? Hanami, I thank you to know you're present within me. You can deal with all these things beyond my understanding by your power, your grace, your presence. I am nothing, yet you are all things through me. And you watch the spiritual process become exactly what it did for this individual. Just for the viewership here, the bottom line is the guy was released in that moment from 17 years of addiction, 11 different rehabs, and to this day now, which is about, I want to say it's about 16 or 18 years ago that this happened, he is still married and deeply in love and totally blessed with his wife. After 18 years from that moment of change in exorcism. Now that's an extreme because he asked those priests to do an exorcism. The spirit realm did not know that somebody else was going to come in without a battle mindset. The spirit realm showed up within that individual battling the priests. The moment there was no battle, the spirit realm couldn't fight anymore. And it went calm, warmth, peace, not cold and oppressive and overpowering the laws of physics. It was peace, calm, divine order, and sensibility. That to me aligned with the divine, and it produced a measurable result of another 16 or 18 years of a loving marriage, wonderful life, no outside influence through alcohol, drugs, or addiction. None of that influences their lives from that day forward.
Wow.
So again, so if you look at it from Hollywood standpoint, they want to bring out the big steak and they want to do all this screeching, yelling. I bind this, I cast that, I cast these, I cast those. And in all humility, I look at it and say, you're bringing the very war you say Yeshua already succeeded in. Yeshua already overpowered the realm of darkness. He overpowered death. He took from Lucifer the keys to the heavens and ministered unto the dead, is the way it's worded. So if that's the case, why don't I surrender to the quantum reality that that's already been done? I'm choosing the image of peace in this moment. I'm choosing the image of restoration. I'm choosing the image of divine light revealed. And I'm choosing the image of God presented in this moment. That's what I would rather choose instead of the drama that Hollywood may present.
Love it. I love it. Wow, that was intense. That example that you, yeah, well, no, actually, that I'm saying that now, it's like a Hollywood moment, like I said, but
Yeah.
it isn't. It really isn't. It really explains exorcism in a totally different light. I watch a
Well,
couple of
there's also
videos.
another side that people need to recognize from that too. Every day I perform exorcism within Larry.
Mm,
As you know, I've been dealing with a lot of stuff physically going on within my body. So I come to a job site. I'm lifting these, like the other day, it was a 317-pound front door that I had to lift into a hole myself. I didn't have the strength for it. I didn't have anybody to help me with it. I exercised fear and unknowing, sought the presence of God, welcomed in holy discernment, and by God's grace was able to lift the door into the hole. By God. So I exercised the spiritual process within me to choose God instead and say, God is my provider, my sustainer, my creator, my completer. God will complete this process within me. I found the mechanism to do it, which was God, and then positioned my body in such a way that it was structured that I didn't bring myself any additional harm. So then I come to situations where I encounter somebody else that is in searching spiritual need. Larry, I'm really kind of confused. I don't know what to do about my business. Okay, let's pray. We pray, and all of a sudden they present, well, what if it fails? Well, there's fear, unknowing. So we're going to release those things. Well, I'm a little confused. Well, we release the spirit of confusion. What do you welcome in its place? Well, God's holy clarity. Great. Let's embrace clarity within that. We've gone through the prayer release process. They don't understand that what I'm doing with them is an exorcism. Because it's calm, peaceful. It's not Hollywood showing flashing lights and a stake running into the room to puncture somebody in the heart. It's a loving process of spiritual release, which brings us back to the point of revelation. I don't believe that revelation is limited to a single occurrence. Rapture is available every single day and has been for over 2,000 years. And I would guarantee you that if there's people spiritually seeking that are watching this video right now, you yourself have experienced rapture and you don't understand it. You've already gone through rapture. Now, what happened was within the Christian body, there was an individual that wrote a book called the Left Behind series, where they talk about people that were taken up. And there's pilots flying through the air, and all of a sudden, poof, they're gone, and the plane crashes, and 140 people die. Or there's a person driving along in a car, and poof, all there is clothes in there, and there's no person, and the car drives into a telephone pole or a tree or whatever. In all humility, let's extract Hollywood. Let's extract the fables of the mind. And let's recognize that there are moments in your life, you, the viewer, right now, where you've encountered rapture, and all of a sudden you found yourself speaking a different language of understanding. You're using different words to describe your position, your thoughts, your actions with people. And all of a sudden, friends look at you different because you've had a progressive realization of growth in you, or a spiritual encounter, or so you lost somebody that moved you in your life to search God more deeply, and all of a sudden you were raptured into a new understanding, and you found a peace within you that that person in front of you that used to be your friend can't understand. I don't know what's happened with Larry. I don't really relate to him anymore. That was you being taken up. It was you being raptured, and then those around you can no longer see you anymore. They see or hear a different individual, and they're like going, well, what happened to Andreas? He's different than he used to be. Or even family members don't recognize you anymore because you're not the little Andreas they used to know. You're now this man that has a spiritual wealth and a spiritual growth and a desire to bless others. And who is this guy? You've been raptured. And I believe that the moment of rapture is available in every single moment, and that the battle unfolding is not out there. It's what is this doing within me? Is the moment of revelation present to evidence God through me, or am I going to evidence the broken seals? Am I going to evidence the damage that comes from a war mindset that we heard 3,000 years ago in Scripture, that we are now bringing forward to present the mind through a quantum reality? We need you to look at this from a war perspective first. No, I can't do that. That's me supplanting God for the spirit of war and embracing war over the surrender to that which is God within me to become peace, restoration, renewal, and blessing. I hope that helps.
It does. All right. So I need to kind of summarize here what I learned today, if that's okay.
Okay.
Ooh,
If we can.
That's a tough one. No, it's not. I made a few notes, just three
Yeah.
things that really stood out to me, and just hear me out. And I don't have the
Yep.
words that you use, to describe it. But what I hear is that there is a transition, a rapture that we can experience from the dark to the light, from the resistance to surrender to the light. That instead of, being isolated and looking at situations, isolated situations, that we surrender and look for
Mm-hmm.
restoration and peace, right? That's what surrender brings. Number two, the mirror. You know, Michael Jackson had that song, "The Man in the Mirror," that just came to
Yes.
mind. The
Yep.
mirror, that we look at things that we perceive as being mirrored out from ourselves, a mirror out there that tells us what's going on in myself. And number three, and that to me, this is the biggest thing I learned today, is don't prepare for battle. That's really what it says to me. That's not the way to go. Prepare to surrender,
Right.
for surrender to gain discernment. So, Larry, I want you to just kind of wrap it up. I know you could probably go on for another hour, but
What are you saying?
no,
What are you saying?
no, it's good. No, but maybe you have some final thoughts that we can wrap this up as we started to talk about exorcism, about how do we deal with those fears and problems that seem to consume us.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can tell us how can we
Well, I could do
peacefully
that,
move
and
forward.
I'll go in reverse order from what you presented, because like when you said don't prepare for battle, and this one can move in many directions, but the bottom line is, if we align ourselves with the presence of God, there is no battle. There's only transmutation. So the changeover from preparing to battle would be a willingness to surrender to that which is. And that which is emerges from the highest state of creation, God creator itself. So I'm not going to prepare for battle. I'm going to prepare myself to remember that which I come from. I'm going to return to that which is God within. And, you know, like even when you were just kidding there and I just kind of joked back, I could have taken it offensively. I could have embraced the spirit of offense, or we could move into a place of jocularity and fun and joyfulness and, you know, whatever we wanted to do. So again, the preparation is about, wait a minute, I'm evidencing behaviors that do not align with my perfect loving creator. That leaves me victim to those things that would present on the battlefield that would be that, whether it's the spirit of offense, spirit of racism, spirit of aggression, spirit of hostility. Those on the battlefield will be able to harm me because I hold them within me, the citadel. I have those to open up the gates and let the enemy come in, those who name themselves enemy. I hear this all the time within Christians. Larry, you don't want me to say the word enemy. I said, no, you can say the word enemy. I just can't choose the word enemy. Because everything that presents in creation, even that which is in the spirit realm, I choose God first. And even if it presents, like in an Arizona location where I was, Lucifer's presence appeared over the whole congregation. I didn't embrace fear. I surrendered unto God. I chose God because God is the greatest force within creation. So if it tries to present itself as something greater to turn towards that false image of light, no. I hold God within me. I choose God instead. So the preparation is becoming familiar with God within and choosing God as your first nature, not a second nature. And then if we move back into the mirror, now we have the opportunity to say, okay, am I genuinely doing this? Or am I bringing forward instructions that they use in scriptural references that do not align with the perfect God that I know? The perfect God that I know is not about destruction, harm, aggression, hostility, blood sacrifice. Yet in a society of man, there was a justification to kill and bloodlet animals to the point where they had to build a special designed drainage system to drain the blood out of the temples because there was so much blood and vile expression that they had to find ways to work around it. I don't see divine order there. But at that time, they thought they were totally justified in doing it. But wait a minute. We also have to sanctify these animals before they're killed so we can charge more for it. And then we're going to make more money out of this. So do I look at that as something that I should carry forward today? No, I look at it as an example. Say, here they've documented this process. And in the mirror, I cannot take life in this way. As I look in the mirror, am I reflecting God's presence or am I reflecting street teachings of the old? If I see teachings of the old, am I immediately in judgment of them? No. I'm using them as an instrument to say, is it showing a pockmark upon my face? Is it showing that my structure is off? Is the mirror reflecting in me something that is not right before the presence of God before I engage? And in that, now I approach back to your first comment, rapture, the opportunity to move from dark to light. If we are truly doing the preparation of recognizing God first, the willingness to balance ourselves within the mirror to align with the true attributes of God, not how they've been altered by man, we will find that we've already been raptured. We will find that we will start moving in such a way that it will reflect God through us in ways that beautiful things will transpire and people will go, where did Larry go? Or where did Andreas go? All I see in their actions is something beautiful that's not them. Even when they respond to my questions, they respond differently. That's the rapture. So if a person wants to, in closing up in summation here, Andreas said, rapture from dark to light, that's a choice. I can either respond from darkness or I can choose the light, sit with greater patience. If I don't have an answer, don't act. If I do have an answer, act from the light. Then that process, am I aligned within the mirror? And I choose to reflect God and not a battling mindset. That's where I could close it, I guess.
So very well said. A great conversation, Larry. Thank you. And we always pick up on themes that we talked for on many videos already,
Yeah.
but I always see different aspects and perspectives, and so I appreciate that. And for you listeners, thank you for sticking. If you're still with us after 1 hour
Yes.
and 20 minutes, thank you for sticking with us. We have a website, gracehealing.org, and also gracehealing.video, which is the direct link to our YouTube channel, where we have probably close to 400 videos, if not more,
Hmm. Hmm.
that go into all different aspects of teachings. So please visit, like this video, share it with people, and we shall be back soon. Right, Larry? We'll do this again.
Yes, and I want to thank everybody that does view and watch the videos. And I would encourage you, please, to comment, because it's not a matter of just instructional awareness. It is my hope to understand where people are. And what do you see that you're questioning? What is your concern about your belief system in the past? Have you found yourself fall away from your belief system and then reintegrating into your belief system? And from within that reintegration process, are you able to identify clearly the things that don't serve within the reintegration? There's no place for judgment or shame or guilt within that. There's something in you that's discerning, and it's saying, yes, I'm returning into the full clarity of that which is Yeshua, the Christ consciousness, but there are certain aspects of my religious practice that I still don't fully agree with. It is okay to sit in the midst and celebrate life with them, to pray with them, to pray for them, and to continue to practice in your place of worship and belief. You do not need to be defined by that. Allow yourself to be defined by God within. And as you engage in these different videos, we ask that you would like, share, and subscribe. And then again, comment. And as you comment, help us to understand what you're seeking. If it's your personal journey, send us a personal message. We're totally open to receive you. You can reach us on Facebook or anywhere you need to, or directly through the website as a prayer submission. All those are held confidential, but we look forward to seeing you.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you, everyone. And we will see you soon again. Be
Yes.
blessed. Bye bye.